Hello and welcome back to Tea Time with me, Amanda Perchask. I'm so glad that you're here today. We're going to be talking about a topic that I think a lot of change programs always are facing, and that's how to overcome resistance. So with that said, grab your favorite drink, come along, and we're going to talk about this for the next, 15, 20 minutes. Cheers. All right, before we get started, as usual, I want to talk a little bit about my tea. So obviously we have the fun pineapple cup today, but inside is a tea that's called sweet and spicy. And we're going to get into that a little bit here today. It's going to be a little bit of sweet, a little bit of spicy to overcome the resisting people in your organization. And I will say just a couple of notes up front on the topic of resistors. A lot of people get sucked in to those who are resisting the change. I do want to caution you that the majority of your time actually should be in the middle of your bell curve. So you have your resistors at the bottom, you have your super supporters at the top, and you have everyone else in the middle. Everyone else in the middle is where you're really going to create the change in the organization. But you cannot forget about those other outliers on either side. There's a lot of importance in them, but just don't spend all of your time in one of these outlier areas, either your resistors or your super supporters. So with that said, let's go through 3 different practical items that we have learned either through my career or through the work that we do at Wonder Services around how you can overcome resistance to change. So the first one, I'm going to be drinking a lot of that today, by the way. I'm overcoming a cold. So it's been a couple weeks actually since I've recorded videos. So I am back now, but probably going to drink a lot more tea today. So first one is activating your influencers. And if you've watched previous videos, and in fact, you could probably find the link to the previous video around influencers below, but we actually have 5 different types of influencers that we like to activate. One of those is called a convert champion. And these are the people that just naturally resist change. You know that Joe or Jane, anytime there's a change, they're like, I am not going to be happy with this. Those are the people, and if they have influence in the organization, those are your natural convert champions. So why is this important to focus and activate them in a change? The first reason is because you want to hear their feedback. You want to make sure that you understand their questions and concerns and where they're coming from. Because there are other resistors in the organization, they just might not have as much influence or have as loud of a voice. But those people in the organization are probably going to have the same concerns, same questions, etc. So they're a very powerful group to listen to understand, to incorporate some of their challenges into your messaging so you can be really authentic with the change, because not everyone loves change. In fact, I will put myself in that boat. I live change all day long. I help other people move through change, but if someone else is doing a change to me, it takes a little bit of time for me to kind of get my head around it. So how do you activate those influencers? So the first one is obviously identifying who those convert champions are. But we love doing one-on-one meetings with these folks so that and with someone that they trust. So it's not the change leader, the change management person that is doing these type of one-on-ones. It's someone in the organization that this convert champion already trusts. We're going to pair those two together, and they're going to have regularly scheduled conversations about the change. And then the individual that we've assigned to the convert champion will come back to us and say, hey, this is what I heard. These are the questions. These are the concerns. This is the positive feedback. I mean, who knows? You could get some of that too. So we love doing those one-on-one meetings because they truly open up with a trusted person so that we can get those insights. The second way to activate your influencers is ask them to do something. So if you have a convert champion Maybe you can ask them to become part of the design team, or you can ask them to do testing because you know that they're going to be super critical about anything that's going on in testing. You can have them review your communications. You can activate these folks so many different ways. And what happens, and the idea behind this is that you can have a handful of those influencers to truly become converted. And what's going to happen at that moment in time is Joe or Jane, all of a sudden people are like, Joe or Jane never liked change, but they like this one. And that's a huge benefit to the organization. So again, don't think of your resistors as like this huge bucket of people that you need to manage. Find those critical convert champions who are influencers in the organization and truly have a plan around those. It is going to make all the difference in the world. So you as a change leader or a project leader, whatever role you have on a project team, if you're trying to create this change, you don't have to do it alone. You can activate these folks in the organization and gain their valuable insights along the way. Okay, so number two, and this kind of goes with what I said earlier, but it's a little bit broader than the influencers. Make sure that your resistors are heard. The more often you can have interactions with that bigger group, in a strategic way, like you're not, again, going to want to spend one-on-one time with that whole group. That's for the influencers. But if you can identify maybe a department in your organization, or you know that a leader's probably not or really supporting of the change, that person's organization and that leader, there are pockets of groups of people within your organization that might naturally be resisting this change. If you can meet with them as a group, share some of the information, but really have it formatted. And we like to call these like forums, Q&A forums, where it's just an open dialogue. Like, hey, here's some information about the project. Here's what you can truly expect and the work that it's going to take to move through this change. However, we just want to have a conversation with you about what's on your mind. What questions do you have? What concerns do you have? What do you need from a communication standpoint? What are you looking for training around this particular change? And it's amazing what can come of this. So we did this back on one of our projects, and there was this really, this whole organization that was critical to the change. Their leader did not want this change to happen, wasn't supportive from day one. And we knew that, although I would say probably a little bit later in the project than when we should have realized this, but we still did. And we created these Q&A forums twice a week for that team. And some people just showed up every time to listen to what other people's concerns were and questions and learning about that. But then there were other people that were super vocal and always came with their questions. And have you thought about this scenario? And it's never going to work and whatever. And then we were able to work through those issues with this team. And I'll never forget, after we went live, one of the biggest resistors to the change had an opportunity to not only stay in the new tool, but then help another division in the old tool. And she came running up to me and she was like, Amanda, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go back into the old tool. The new tool is so much better. It's everything that I was hoping for. Even though I was resisting the change, I love it and I don't want to go back. And that's like when you know that you've really made an impact on a project and you really helped someone come along with the change, which is just an amazing thing for me. It was just one of those like moments you're like, I'm going to cherish this for a little while. But those Q&A forums are so important to do. We never require them. And this is a really interesting thing to kind of get your head around, because if you have a group of resistors and you don't make a meeting required, if people don't show up to the meeting, you know that they're being super passive aggressive around their resistance, and we can maybe put them in a different category of activation around the change. But for the most part, when you make it optional, people are super curious about it. And they want to be there. They want to be engaged. They want to be heard. So that's just another tip and trick around that Q&A forum for these resistors is make it optional, and you'll be amazed on the results of what you see. Okay. So the last and third option, I'm going to take some more tea here, is all around giving resistors options. Okay. Nobody, and this is like scientifically proven in the brain, so nobody likes to be told what to do, especially during times of change. And you only get one option. The way that people love to work is to be able to have options. The autonomy of choice is a huge, huge thing to reduce stress, to create ownership, and an alignment with the person who might be resisting. So whenever we go into a very heated situation where it feels like everyone is resisting the change, we always like to talk about, okay, what are the options that we can give folks to either A, engage on the project and the change, or B, what are the options that we can give them once we move through the change, and making sure that they, at the end of the day, can choose the route that best fits them. Now, I will say, not always easy to do, but if you can, as a project team, think of like the different options or choices you can give people, even when it comes down to training, like, hey, we have this option or this option, which one would you like to do? Or even before that, when you're talking to the resistors, like, how do you want to be trained? And you're going to come up with 5 different ways of training people. Maybe you can give 2 of those practically to those folks. We also think about it from a communication standpoint. Everyone likes an option of being communicated to. So we usually do all kinds of different varieties of communication to reach people where they are and to fulfill the option that they're looking for, but then also always with an eye on feedback. So the more you can, even during a go live, like, how do you want to be supported? What does that look like for you? Do you want to go to a Q&A forum, or would you like to have a one-on-one session? For those like really strong resistors, it's worth the time and effort to really provide those options to them so they can own it at the end of the day and say, and they can reflect on themselves and say, I chose this path for myself. No one else chose it for me. And therefore, I am going to be more comfortable with the results that I'm seeing because I'm the one that chose that and nobody forced it upon me. So always think about options for folks as they are moving through the change, especially this resistor group. The last thing that I'm going to say, because we've talked about 3 really powerful concepts here. 1, activate your convert champions. 2, make sure your resistors are heard through those Q&A forums that are optional for people. And then the third one is give people options throughout the entire project so that they can really take ownership of their journey and how they're moving through the change. So those are 3 very, very powerful concepts. Now, I do want to kind of sum up or kind of round out this conversation with maybe some interactions that you have had with someone who is completely not being logical about the change. This happens all the time, especially on an individual level. They're super frustrated, super stressed out. They're worried about, I don't know, maybe getting laid off from their job or their job completely changing. Those are high stress situations. And I will tell you that it's a good reminder that you cannot logic with someone who's being not logical. So one of our good friends, Allison, and I'll put her information on the video below, but Allison is a neuroscientist, and she was talking to one of our clients around going limbic, which is where your stress reaction in your brain is keeping you in that state versus going to your the CEO brain, as she calls it, the frontal cortex, which is where logic happens. So if someone's is going limbic and they're just completely not logical, it's best to make sure that they feel understood, but don't try to create logical situations for that person at that moment in time. So often I hear leaders, they're just like, that meeting went completely sideways and I tried pulling them back and it just didn't work and it made things worse. So just know when you're trying to work with someone who is not in a logical state, again, go into listen mode. That is a huge, huge benefit. Write down what you're hearing. Try maybe ask some seeking to understand questions. But that's not the time to try to convince anyone that this change is good or this is going to benefit them. It's time to listen and make sure that person can maybe get whatever's on their chest off their chest. And then take note that you're going to have to circle back at a different time to explain maybe why they shouldn't be so stressed out about the brain or about the change. And then also maybe help them get into a little bit more of a logical state. So that is one of the hardest things about leading change, is that everyone has a personal reaction to the change. And it's scientifically proven in how the brain reacts to change that even some of the most logical people can be stuck in kind of this stressed out state. So the more that we can get people to be thinking in the CEO brain, the better off we're going to be. So thanks, Allison, for sharing that super insightful tip that kind of rounds out this whole topic. So again, this is what we do at Wonder Services. We create change in organizations, and it's what I live for. It's why I started the company. And I hope this video was really beneficial for you so that you can apply these tips to move your resistors through the change in the most effective ways. If you like this video, please hit subscribe and the like button so that you can follow along with all the rest of the videos that we're creating each and every week. And if you want to learn more about influencers, please hit the link below. Always appreciate you. Cheers until next time.